Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui in Beijing. Romance is the theme of the day as the world celebrates Valentine's Day. But the recent incident has set China's netizens wondering whether romance can be easily overshadowed by lack of money. For Spring Festival this year, a man finally brought his Shanghai girlfriend back to his home village to meet his family, only to get dumped when she didn't like the humble food. Why have Chinese netizens been responding so strongly to the incident? Is there wisdom in the old tradition of marrying someone from an equal social and economic status? Can love transcend all boundaries? And what does the incident say about the wealth gap between China's urban and rural areas? To discuss these questions, we are joined in the studio by Professor David Moser of Capital Normal University and Professor Jung Chen, a cultural consultant. But first, let's take a look at what exactly happened between the Shanghai girl and her country ex.
During Spring Festival this year, a photo of simple dishes and an old dining table with the title "Thinking About Breaking Up" went viral on the Chinese internet. The photo was posted by a woman who states that she is a 27-year-old from a well-off family in Shanghai, working in HR at a foreign company, while her boyfriend comes from a poor village in East China's Jiangxi province. The two had been together for a year, despite protests from her parents, who worried that her boyfriend was too poor and wouldn't be able to buy a house in Shanghai for their marriage. However, the woman says that she thought that things were good. But when her boyfriend brought her back to his home village to meet his family for the first time and sat down at the dinner table, she abruptly changed her mind. The woman decided immediately and caught the first train back to Shanghai. Despite some people questioning the authenticity of the photo and the story, it has triggered heated discussions online in China. More than 180,000 comments have been made under the original post on Weibo, with many writing in to emphasize the importance of shared socio-economic status in relationships. The families of a couple should be well matched, one netizen commented. Meanwhile, most have also criticized the woman for her lack of manners. Breaking up was the right thing to do, but she should have been a little smoother about it, another netizen wrote. Even People's Daily, the official newspaper of China's ruling party, has published an article commenting on this tragic love story and talking about the widening urban-rural gap in China.
Welcome back. Now, David, if you were in the shoes of the boss of this Shanghai girlfriend, namely you are the boss of the big company, she works as a PR lady, is she likely to be fired because the reputation of the company is likely to be undermined if someone, one of the netizens may have started the human flash search through the Baidu?
Yeah, I don't know. As the boss, if it's a scandal, of course he's probably going to fire this woman. But as I understand it, she put this out by herself on Weibo, on the social media, and was not exactly ashamed of it. And also, as far as I've seen lately, looking at the comments of the netizens, it's divided. Some people support her. A lot of people, in fact, think she has a point. They understand. They sympathize with her. So I think the reaction, the public reaction to her actions have been complicated.
But first and foremost, are your opinions divided between you guys here about her decision to break up the relationship, Joan?
I think we need to look at this phenomenon, the phenomenon of love in China today, from a macro scale, to see China in terms of its economic and social transformation. If China is going through this great migration in the past 30 years, there are bound to be a lot of populations are living inside the cities. So the women actually are confronted with choices that is diversified. You have people from the city, you have people from the countryside. I think this girl is finally having a reality check, and she's being honest in voicing her view, and there's nothing wrong about that, and she's courageous enough to open her discussion. I think we should give her a chance, although she's not exactly respectful and mature in making her decision that way.
I'm not surprised about your realistic point of view regarding the decision of this Shanghai girl, but are you with her? Do you take side with her?
In terms of what?
If you were in her shoes, would you have made the same decision?
Not that abruptly, but I will probably make a decision after having a great dinner or lunch and having a very lovely time with the family, and then maybe discuss with the boyfriend. in that way.
David, now this Shanghai girl may have made a stupid mistake by simply refusing to do the necessary homework about the background of her boyfriend, who comes from a humble family background in a rural area. Do you think it should have been her job to know at least some basic things about the family background? Because she faced the strong opposition from her parents in Shanghai, and Shanghai people have long been known for their cynical attitude towards those who've come from the rural areas, from outside Shanghai. And from Jiangbei, you know, the Gangbening, the northern side of the Yangtze River. What do you think of the people's assumptions about the Shanghai cynical attitude about marriage and
yeah, there is this presumption of Shanghai as certainly the younger generation, the post-90s generation, have this reputation as being extremely materialistic, maybe spoiled. They grew up in a very different kind of China than you did, and they're not willing to. In Chinese, the expression is to 吃苦, you know, to eat bitterness, to live with hardship. And it might be that, in fact, it was a reality wake-up call for her. She had just simply never imagined what it might be like to go home and see the kind of conditions that her husband grew up in. And being a spoiled city girl, I have no idea. I don't know this woman. I have no idea. I'm just guessing. But being a city girl, probably of some wealth, she was from a white-collar job, right? She probably went home and had this reaction of, "Ew, this is poor. People live. They eat this humble food. They eat this. I don't want to be tied forever to be coming back home every New Year's Day." To be with this family in this poverty, stricken environment. So do I blame her for that? I don't know.
It's absolutely unthinkable and ridiculous for this Shanghai girl to dump her boyfriend simply because of the humble food in a rural family. Now, having said this, what do you think of the image of a phoenix man? Feng Huang Man, that's becoming popular on the internet because of such story like a young man from a humble family, but he entered the university, good grades, and then found a good job, and he stands a good chance of being promoted. He looks good, by the way, and then many girls would be behind him, would be pursuing him to have him as the boyfriend. So what do you think of this popular assumption about the Phoenix Man, the Feng Huang Nan? What do you think of the background about the popularity or controversy surrounding the image of a Phoenix Man?
And I wonder why we don't talk about Phoenix women, but anyway.
David
we have a lot
look
of
at
Phoenix
the
women
other
too.
way around.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking about Phoenix Man as a man who is making a big transition in his life, who is going into a new, lifestyle, who is making his roadmap. He is passing through his life in a courageous way, and he is just making a total change in his life. And I'm sure women find this kind of trailblazing men attractive, especially if they come from the countryside. They may be pure or maybe purer, or they may be very honest, and they are very attractive. I personally think people from countryside, they have a unique qualities that the urban people doesn't have, and I think we should learn from the rural population versus looking down upon them. Wouldn't you agree?
Maybe the girl from Shanghai was a little bit too serious about the relationship. She could date him without marrying him, and to encourage this Phoenix Man to with something encouraging. For example, you are respected here because of your career success. David, what do you think of?
I think that this raises a kind of an ugly little specter that still haunts China, and that's class. This was originally
society.
Supposed to be a society which had eliminated class barriers and class consciousnesses, and it's come back with a vengeance. I hear more about class here than even in the United States, where it's politically incorrect to discuss class. It exists in the United States too. People don't want to mix classes, but I think probably to a lot of maybe Americans watching this might be a little bit puzzled. But you have to realize that in China, marriage is not just between the man and the woman, you really do have to take more into account the in-laws, the parents of the two, because that still is going to be very much the responsibility. You're going to have to spend a lot more of your energies and time in taking care of them in their old age. And so this woman was calculating long term. She was thinking, you know, this guy is maybe a very sweet guy, a very handsome guy, he's making a lot of money, but I've got to take into account that I've got to keep taking care of his mother and father for the rest of my life, which means I've got to keep coming back to this place, and I've got to keep dealing with these hardship conditions. That's very different from the calculation that someone makes in my country, where you get married, even if your parents don't like your other, you don't have that much to do with them usually. You're more independent. So I can understand it from the woman's point of view. I don't agree with what she did, but I can understand it a little bit better.
You put your finger on a very interesting point. You know, the Communist Party of China thought that it had the mandate in its hands before and after the liberation in 1949, because their job was to liberate poverty-stricken people from the tyranny of the ruling class like KMT government before 1949. By the way, Chiang Kai-shek fled to Taiwan after being defeated in the 3-year civil strife. So we are a little bit embarrassed by the fact that David pinpointed, we are still living in a class society. Now, Karl Marx, Marxism and modern thoughts, if you like, all vowed to get rid of the class through perhaps the devastating Cultural Revolution between 1966 and 76 that wreaked havoc with the economy and that almost destroyed the morale and the confidence and the ethics and everything, traditional culture, if you like, that we boasted of. And now today, we still live in, ironically, we still live in the class society. What's wrong with that?
But there's major, problem with that. And here we are in the 21st century. We're living in an age with global expansion. Barriers has been torn down with all this internet expansion. We have great interracial relationship. You have Chinese woman marrying American man, and you have all these intercultural relationships.
I'm afraid not
Why can't you
between
have
Han people and the
relationship?
Uyghurs in Xinjiang, I'm afraid. That's a big problem.
Mm-hmm. But I'm celebrating interracial, intercultural, interclass relationships. I think we need to be forward-thinking globally. Expanding our vision instead of just keeping it within your own class. What kind of world is that? It's very backward thinking. We need to move forward.
Are you utopian or
very
more
idealistic?
Idealistic, yes.
Yeah,
I smell of something about utopianism, but it's something we should appreciate, by the way. What do you think of her utopian overtones?
Oh, I agree. Of course, it would be great if at least economic disparity could disappear to the point where class differences didn't matter that much, and everyone was having their cake and eating it too. In this particular case, it was the interesting thing. It's the male in the situation had supposedly transcended the barriers of class. He had a good job. He had moved to the city. He was living a lifestyle in which he was now seemed to be had been the benefit of class mobility. He had moved up to another class.
Unlike in Hong Kong, where young people didn't have the chance of upward mobility following the takeover in 1997. That's perhaps one of the major reasons behind the occupying central movement that we had the year before last. Right? What do you think of the chance for young people to get successful and therefore to iron out the differences and to get rid of the disputes that may threaten to divide the spectrum of public opinions and divide the society ruthlessly?
Today we have all opportunities, all equal opportunities for you to excel in society. I think this is an open society. We don't have to live in Confucianism-oriented society, although China is very deeply embedded with, especially women. And they are either, in the past, they are either a daughter of someone or a wife of someone, or then a mother of someone. They should really transform into themselves, give themselves a real identity in this new society, so that they don't have to live through man, so they don't have to have a major shock when you go into a reality check like that.
Thank you very much. You are watching Dialogue with Madame Jung Cheng and David Mose. We are discussing whether family background matters for our marriage in the urban life. We'll be back in a short while. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Now, the country acts of the Shanghai girl said after those photos about the humble food were posted on the internet that he would be very confident. He was confident that he would be able to find yet another girlfriend, maybe better than the Shanghai girl. And he didn't apologize for having this allegedly humble family background and humble foodstuffs during the Spring Festival. Now, in response to his remarks on the internet, one letter caused fierce debates. And this letter says, okay, you don't have to apologize for the rural family background, but why don't you stay put? Why don't you stay in the countryside? Why should you still prefer to work in Shanghai, where prosperity would benefit all people, whatever your background? So what do you think of this strong-worded response from one of the netizens towards this boy, the poor guy who was dumped by his Shanghai girlfriend?
This guy is not a poor guy. He's a lucky guy. He got rid of his potential problem instantly, and I congratulate him. And he doesn't need to apologize for anything except to be happy that he will be opening up himself to a better woman who appreciates life as it is, who appreciates life, especially life she doesn't know. People should know better about life beyond your comfort zone. If you're a city girl, you need to know more about rural life. These days, when we celebrate relationship between human and nature, we should embrace nature or rural areas more, other than look down upon it. It was so short-sighted. She has so much to learn.
Yes, indeed. Now, it seems sometimes young people and even the old generation are proud of traditional Chinese culture across the Taiwan Strait. On the other side of the Taiwan Strait, it seems our traditional culture, like Confucianism, particularly the essential part of it, like filial piety, is well protected. But today, taking the Shanghai girlfriend as an example, she's not ashamed of saying goodbye to a humble rural family, the family of her boyfriend. So what's wrong with our traditional culture when the Chinese have been so proud of having a big family, an extended family, 3 generations under the same roof, meaning the young would show respect definitely to the elderly, the retirees, the pensioners. But in this tragic story, this Shanghai girl doesn't have any qualms of guilt.
Yeah, as we were saying, I think it's a very different era, especially for this post-90s or the people who are in their early 20s. It's a very different world, a very different China. And as we know, you probably talked about in this program a lot, these sort of implicit bonds between generations that were in the traditional Chinese family that were based on the Confucian principles are breaking down seriously ever since the one-child policy broke them down quite a bit. The move of the countryside, massive influx to the cities, the urbanization has broken it down a lot. And the third thing that's broken it down is so many young people graduating and going overseas to study. So they're no longer even in China to take care of their elders and their extended families. So these 3 things have broken down the very, very basic contract between the generations, and China's going to have to deal with its increasing elderly population, figure out some way to take care of them or let them take care of themselves with pensions and so on, because it ain't going to work with the kids taking care of the grown-ups now. That's a thing of the past, unfortunately. I mean, you would think it would be a great goal, a great Confucian sort of ideal, but it's not realistic now in the 21st century. They've got to figure out some way to solve it.
But I wonder whether that's the problem of the girl. I don't think the girl is directly worried about the parents. Maybe it's a girl who just want more money. I mean, is that the parents is the biggest issue here?
I think the issue. I think this woman is symptomatic of a large scale change. Yeah. That doesn't mean that she gets off the hook or we don't blame her. You make your own decisions. You can't treat people badly, on a one-to-one basis. But you have to, as you said, look at a macro level. She's reflective of these large social changes that are taking place.
Right.
What do you think of the government's policy about the social spending, public spending? For example, don't you think it's the job of the government at different levels to look after the elderly and the retirees instead of leaving the financial burden to the young children who are wrestling with a stressful life in urban areas?
Yeah, I think so. I think China is making great progress on many levels. I think the government is just about to get to it, isn't it? I don't work with the government. I think the
And
government will
therefore,
do it
small to
sooner or later.
medium-sized enterprises have good reasons to be taxed heavily, so that there will be more revenue, fiscal revenue for the government authorities to look after the elderly. But what about the military build-up, which takes so much of our budget?
So what do you think? I mean this issue it
This is a
takes
sensitive
a
issue, of
governmental
course, yeah.
people to answer, I think.
Well, there's these large-scale changes that the government is not just standing by and watching, they're supporting, which one is urbanization. They are trying to decrease the number of people in the countryside. It's now 51% in urban areas, where it used to be when I first came here.
No, I'm asking a question about the accountability and responsibility of the government. Now, don't you think the government should leave many more things to the society instead of looking after them, the government itself? Instead, the government should spend more time, more money looking after or providing public goods and public services, like
I agree.
social security
Exactly.
program, medical care.
Exactly. They should take care of the elderly a little bit better than what they are doing now.
Particularly, don't you think that the migrant workers deserve special care, because it is, after all, these guys who have made tremendous contributions to the change of the skyline. Look at the rise of the skyscrapers in the cities, the construction boom here. Now, these guys deserve credit and special care from the government.
That's exactly right. This Chinese modernization, this Olympic city, was built on the backs of the migrant workers who, frankly, have gotten a raw deal. Very often, they lack access to schooling, they lack access to health care. I think you're right. I think the government, if it wants to create these changes, these huge social changes in the interest of stability and in the interest of a long-term sustainability, they've got to invest the money to help with schools. They've got to make changes with the hukou to allow migrant workers to have better access to care. They've got to protect that's right, and they've got to take better care of the elderly, and they've also got to solve these very problems that this story we're talking about, which is the class difference of the countryside moving into the city. You're going to get these clash of classes, and you're also going to get a competition for resources, because the urban resources are limited. So the people who live here do not want to give them up, but the people who are coming here to take part in the urbanization process are going to want some of those resources too. You've got to figure out, the government's got to figure a way out to help those people who fall through the cracks. So I think you're exactly right about that.
How can a government get rid of the class issue? I think we need more personal education to bring up, to cultivate their virtues of the individual. I think we are going through a moral crisis. China is reaching its moral crossroad. A lot of young people, they worship money more than anything. I think this is a major problem. I think the government should be supporting young people to understand their roots, their culture, to respect the elderly. While the government is doing their job, trying to provide care for the elderly, the young people still need to carry out their traditional roles of taking care of parents. I think they both should work together to move forward, to welcome a new age. I don't think the young people should.
I agree that the two sides, that the spiritual and educational side should work together with the economic, but without the economic prospects and the economic policies in line, nothing else will work. If the underlying economics do not support the change will fail.
I understand. Policy are important. Yeah.
Yes, we should display more of a sympathy towards the young urbanites or urban dwellers here in the first and second tier cities for at least one reason. The government, the central authorities, have decided to relax its one-child policy by allowing the young white-collar workers to have more than one child, two perhaps. Now, then, having said this, let's do a quiz here. What kind of man are you willing to marry? This is a survey recently conducted on the internet. The most popular response was a divorced man who owns a house and a car, followed by a successful 40-something man who has gone on a lot of blind dates but is still single. Interestingly, and even a bit surprisingly, the least popular kind of man, coming in behind even an unassuming computer programmer and handsome freelancer, was the so-called Phoenix man. What do you think of the results of the survey?
It's a very funny result of this research. I think women need to really live a fulfilled life on their own before they search for another half. I mean, love is in the nature of the illusionary. Love is illusionary anyway. So you should really, I mean, search for your own identity, your own destiny before you live through another person. That's bound to be a failure if you try to live your life through another man. So this is secondary as to what kind of man. What kind of woman are you? I mean, if you don't know that question, you have all kinds of problems. The man is not the problem is you. Of course, when you are dealing with men, you have all kinds of choices.
In fact, June is alluding to a fact that women should first of all become economically independent instead of pinning their future on the economic backbone of their boyfriends and husbands or hubbies. So this has a lot to do with how we look at the women's lib. That took place in the 50s, perhaps in the wake of the Second World War.
I agree with Joanne. I think that this survey is also symptomatic of a problem. The fact that so many women opt for this kind of sort of ready-made, we would call a sugar daddy, someone who has lots of money and is going to take care of you, means that women still do not feel empowered. They still do not feel confident about their own ability to support themselves in the future. And so they're still opting for those choices because they're not stupid. They see that there's a glass ceiling for women. They see that the people around them, are not getting the kinds of jobs that can support them in life. And they're just they're making a choice that's rational for them. But it just shows that the women's liberation problem has not succeeded in China yet. And even some of the recent terms that you've seen in social media, such as 剩女, the leftover women, the women who are encouraged to marry as soon as they possibly can, or at least that there's a sort of an upper limit. What is this? What message does this send? The women do not feel that they themselves are empowered yet.
Since the growing independence of leftover women could be one of the hallmarks of a civil society during the process of modernization in a developing country like China, do you think we're going to see more divorce rate, and don't you think there will be more leftover women so that they could protect their own dignity and the rights?
I actually protest about the word leftover.
Yeah,
it is
what I say
a word
too,
that should be, vanished, abolished, please. Leftover by who? We stay single by choice. Leftover because we're waiting for you to rescue us? I mean, this is ridiculous kind of connotation, as if women need to be taken care of by someone.
Right.
I mean, to have a unity with another person is beautiful. I mean, however long or short it is, one need to, be independent first, then everything else is a gift. And I think this leftover idea, I just resented.
Right. This was
it has a strong overtone of humiliation for women who want to be independent, who want their dignity to be protected.
Well, the implicit thing is they're less than complete, that their goal is being attached to a man. The assumption.
By who?
Yeah, right.
By men, meaning they have to come here and pick us?
Yeah.
How about we pick you? This is a patriarchal society, and women contribute to this stereotyped kind of image tremendously. I think women should be awakened.
Perhaps you have underestimated the adversity of the circumstances you live in. For example, we are still living in the age of male chauvinism, and therefore subconsciously, somehow, not all of the young women or ladies, girls, would act and live like you. But thank you for your participation in this dynamic discussion about why a Shanghai girlfriend decided to dump her boyfriend. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.